You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself. What could that possibly mean? An aperture, an opening, a hole. We spend our lives terrified of being this, a nothing, a nobody. We build a name, a career, a solid thing. We fill our lives with noise, desperately trying to prove that we are. But what if the very thing we're running from, this idea of being empty, is not a curse, but the source of our greatest freedom? What if the aim of the wise man is not to become a great impressive something, but to become a perfect luminous nothing? And this leads us to a word, a concept that is perhaps the most misunderstood of all. It is the subject we must explore, and I find it a little difficult to say what it is because it's too fundamental to give it a title. One might call it the way or the Tao, but that is like saying the sound of the rain is the weather report. It is not the same thing. I'm going to talk about emptiness. And that word, you see, immediately conjures up all sorts of things. A sense of lack, loneliness. We are a culture obsessed with filling things up. Our schedules, our minds, our homes crammed to the brim with things to do, things to know, things to possess. We believe that more is better, that a full life is a busy life, that a full mind is a smart mind. But have you ever considered that the most useful part of anything is precisely the part that is empty? There is a saying, very old, from the tradition of the Tao. It goes, we mold clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. Isn't that an amusing thing? The potter, you see, he takes the clay, he fusses over it, he works diligently, he forms this beautiful solid thing, and we admire it. We look at the pot and we say, what a marvelous thing. But the potter, if he is a good potter, knows the secret. He knows that all his work was not to create a solid object, but to create a space, a contained emptiness. And that word, you see, immediately conjures up all sorts of things. A sense of lack, loneliness. We are a culture obsessed with filling things up. Our schedules, our minds, our homes crammed to the brim with things to do, things to know, things to possess. We believe that more is better, that a full life is a busy life, that a full mind is a smart mind. But have you ever considered that the most useful part of anything is precisely the part that is empty? There is a saying, very old, from the tradition of the Tao. It goes, we mold clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. Isn't that an amusing thing? The potter, you see, he takes the clay, he fusses over it, he works diligently, he forms this beautiful solid thing, and we admire it. We look at the pot and we say, what a marvelous thing. But the potter, if he is a good potter, knows the secret. He knows that all his work was not to create a solid object, but to create a space, a contained emptiness. The clay is not the point. The emptiness is the point. Without that hollow space, you see, it would be a paperweight, a brick. You couldn't put anything in it. It would be useless. So we come to this strange idea, this seeming contradiction, that the wise man, the person we look to for guidance, is not one who has accumulated all the answers, but one who actively seeks emptiness. Why on earth would he do that? Well, it is because he understands that the mind is like that pot. We spend our lives, do we not, filling our minds? We stuff them with facts, with opinions, with memories of what that dreadful person said to us 10 years ago, with anxieties about what might happen tomorrow. We are constant consumers, mental gourmands, and we never digest anything. We just keep piling it in, and so the mind becomes cluttered. A room so full of furniture you cannot move. A mirror covered in so much dust and paint, it can no longer reflect anything. It is a cup that is already full of clay, And if someone comes along to offer you a marvelous, exquisite tea, the truth of this very moment, you have no room for it. Your cup is already full of yesterday's tea, stale, cold, and bitter. The wise man seeks to empty this cup. But here we must be very careful. When we in the West hear the word emptiness, we tend to think of a void, a nihilistic nothingness, a kind of bleak cosmic despair. We think of it as the opposite of something, and to be nothing, to have nothing, is our ultimate fear. This is because we confuse emptiness with blankness. We think the goal is to become a blank slate, to erase ourselves. But that is not it at all. That is just another form of filling the mind, you see, with the idea of blankness. It is trying to be quiet by shouting silence at the top of your lungs. No, no. The emptiness that the wise man seeks is not a barren wasteland of the soul. It is a fertile void. It is the silence between the musical notes which makes the melody. Without the gap, you see, there is only a continuous meaningless noise. It is the space between the stars that allows them to be stars. It is the still hub at the center of the wheel which gives the revolving rim its stability and its function. This emptiness is not nothingness. It is pure potential. It is the unmanifest source from which all things spring. Before the Big Bang, what was there? Scientists, poets, they might call it a singularity, a void. But from that void emerged, well, everything. The galaxies, the planets, the oceans, and you and I sitting here having this peculiar conversation. The wise man seeks this kind of emptiness in his own mind. He is not trying to become stupid, to forget everything he knows. That would be absurd. He is simply cleaning house. He is taking the furniture out of the room not to live in an empty room but to dance in it. He is emptying his cup not to keep it empty but to make it ready to receive the wine of the present moment, which is, you might say, the only wine there is. He is seeking the state where the mind is not cluttered with commentary, where it can reflect the world as it is, immediately, directly, like a perfect mirror or the surface of a still lake reflecting the moon, and in that reflection there is no separation between the lake and the moon. The reflection is the moon for that moment. And the mind, when it is truly empty in this sense, is the world. And so the wise man seeks emptiness not to escape the world, but to engage with it more fully, more freely, and more compassionately. He is free because he is not clinging to anything. He is light because he is not weighed down by the solid heavy things of opinion and belief. He can flow. He can dance. He can be surprised. And that, I would suggest, is a far more interesting way to live. But how does one begin to sense this? How does one start to appreciate this emptiness when our entire culture, our very language teaches us to value only the solid, the full, the thing? Well, that is a journey. So we have this idea of the useful emptiness. You see, the space that allows. But this can still feel a bit intellectual, a concept. A pot is a thing after all. So let us wander a little deeper into the woods of this. There is another ancient idea from the same family of thoughts. The idea of pu, the uncarved block. Imagine a great beautiful piece of wood. A master carpenter looks at it. Now a poor craftsman, he looks at that block and he sees a chair or a table or a door. He immediately wants to do something to it, to carve it up, to impose his idea upon it, to make it into something useful, to give it a name, a purpose, a price tag. But the true master, he looks at the uncarved block and he just sees the block. He sees its grain, its texture, its sheer silent suchness. He doesn't see what it could be. He sees what it is. And in that seeing there is a kind of reverence, a love for the original unnameable thing before we chop it up with our thoughts. Our mind, you see, is that poor craftsman. It is constantly carving the world up. It looks at this flowing, wiggly, interconnected reality and it says, "Ah, that is a tree. That is a cloud. That is me. And that over there is you." It labels everything. It creates nouns where there are only processes. It creates things where there are only events. It takes the uncarved block of reality and it whittles it down into a million little separate lonely pieces. And we get so fascinated by all the little carvings, the thoughts, the opinions, the judgments that we forget the original silent uncarved wood from which they all came. The wise man seeks emptiness by seeking to return to that uncarved block. Not by becoming a blank idiot, but by ceasing his compulsive carving. He learns to look at the world without immediately slapping a label on it. He lets the world be what it is in its pristine, mysterious, unnameable state. And this is where another beautiful metaphor arises. The mind is a mirror. A mirror doesn't do anything. You see, it doesn't store up images. It doesn't say, "Oh, what a lovely face. I shall keep that one." Or, "Good heavens, what an ugly sight. I must reject it." It receives everything equally, light, dark, beautiful, ugly. It takes them all in with perfect impartial hospitality. And the instant the object is gone, the mirror is empty again, clear, ready for the next reflection. It doesn't cling. It doesn't regret. It doesn't hope. Now, is the mirror being passive? No. It is being incredibly alertly active in its receptivity. It is perfectly responding to everything that comes before it. That is its function. Its its virtue, its power, is in its emptiness. Our minds have lost this mirror-like quality. We don't just reflect a sad event. We develop a sticky residue called my sadness. We don't just reflect an insult. We carve a permanent statue called my grievance. We are storing up all the dust and smudges of a lifetime. And then we wonder why we can't see anything clearly anymore. We are trying to see the present moment through the accumulated grime of the past. The wise man seeks to wipe the mirror clean. Not to have nothing reflect upon it, but to have it reflect perfectly. To have a mind that meets this moment, this person, this problem, this joy, this grief, freshly, directly, without the interference of all that old dust. He isn't indifferent. A mirror is not indifferent. It reflects the grief as perfectly as it reflects the joy. It is more sensitive, not less. It feels things more completely precisely because it doesn't cling to them. Because it knows the feeling will pass and the mirror will be clear again. This is the great secret. Non-clinging is not coldness. It is the ultimate form of intimacy with the ever-changing flow of life. It is to be like water, which does not resist. It flows around. It reflects. It yields. And yet in time it wears away the hardest stone. Its softness, its emptiness, is its strength. So the emptiness we speak of is not a barren void. It is this vibrant, alive, mirror-like clarity. It is the uncarved block rich with potential. It is a mind that has stopped its compulsive carving and has learned to just be, to reflect, to be the silent, spacious awareness in which the entire world is happening. And when you begin to sense that, even for a moment, you realize you are not something that is in the world. You are the space in which the world is coming and going. You are not the reflection. You are the mirror. And that changes everything. But how does one find this mirror? How does one stop the carving? Well, that is not a doing, but an undoing. So, we arrive at the crux of the matter, don't we? We have this lovely image of the uncarved block of the clear mirror. It sounds so peaceful. But then we look inward. And what do we find? Not a mirror, but a museum. Not a block of wood, but a frantic little curator. A shabby little museum with a very exclusive collection called me, myself, and I. This is the great hypnotism. You see, we have been put to sleep by the noun language. We have learned to define ourselves as a thing, a solid, separate, continuous thing inside a bag of skin, the center of the universe, a subject staring out at a world of alien objects, thinking, how on earth do I, this thing, get that thing to behave? But what is this you that you are so concerned about? Let's examine it. Let's pull at the thread. You say, I am John, or I am Jane. But that is a label given to you at birth. It is a useful noise, a social convenience, like saying that waterfall or this tree. But is that you? You say, I am a doctor, or the teacher, or the mother. But these are roles you play, costumes you wear. They are what you do. They are not what you are at the fundamental level. If you lost that job, that title, would you cease to exist? You say, I am my thoughts. But can you not also watch your thoughts? You can say, I am angry. But there is also a part of you that can notice, anger is arising. So who is the I that is watching the anger? Is anger watching itself? That doesn't make sense. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts come and go like weather patterns in the sky. You are not a static noun. You are a verb. You are a happening, a process, a field of activity. Think of a whirlpool in a river. It has a recognizable, stable form. You could give it a name. Old Whirly, you might say. He's been there for years. But is it a thing? Can you take it out of the river and put it in a bucket? No. The whirlpool is something the river is doing. It is a pattern of flowing water. At no point is it separate from the river. The water in it is constantly changing. Yet the form persists. You are exactly like that. You are a whirlpool of air, food, light, sound, and information. You are a nexus where the whole universe is expressed in this particular flowing form. Your skin is not a barrier. It is a delicate membrane through which the entire cosmos is flowing. You are the universe personing. You are the earth humaning. The wise man seeks emptiness by seeing through this illusion of the separate solid self. He isn't trying to annihilate himself. That would be just another ego trip, a striving to become the best self-annihilator. No, he simply ceases to believe the thought that he is this isolated thing. And how does he do this? Not by adding a new theory, but by a gentle, patient undoing. It is not a doing, but a not doing. It is the practice of unselfing. It happens when you are so completely absorbed in something that you forget yourself. The dancer disappears into the dance. The singer becomes the song. The potter becomes one with the clay. The gardener becomes the garden. In those moments, the anxious calculating me vanishes. And what is left is pure, effortless doing. The cup is empty, and you are, miraculously, paradoxically, full of the entire activity. It is the practice of listening, really listening, to another person without simultaneously composing your response in your head. When you give them your complete attention, yourself is not there cluttering the space. There is just the sound of their voice, the look in their eyes. In that emptiness of your own ego, you meet them truly. It is the practice of looking at a tree, not as an object separate from you labeled tree, but simply seeing it without the word. Seeing the shimmer of its leaves, the texture of its bark, the way the light plays through its branches. When you look without the label, you see the thing itself. And in that direct perception, the feeling of separation between the seer and the seen begins to melt away. This is not a grand dramatic attainment. It is a subtle, continuous letting go, a gentle easing of the mental grip. You are not killing the ego. You are just seeing it for what it is, a useful social convention, a collection of habits, a pattern of energy, not the master of the house. And as this grasping relaxes, a funny thing happens. You don't become nobody. You become everybody. You realize that the center of yourself is not in here and the world out there. The center is everywhere. You are the whole river, not just the whirlpool. And in that realization, the deepest loneliness vanishes. You are not a lonely little thing confronting a vast alien universe. You are the universe, and it is playing at being you. And from that place, action arises that is not forced, not calculated, not anxious. It is spontaneous, appropriate, and compassionate. It is the river flowing. It is the tree growing. It is the universe expressing itself through your unique form. And it is, I assure you, the most effortless and powerful way to live. But this is not the end. It is really the beginning. For when you see this, the whole game changes. And that is the greatest fun of all. And so what is the fruit of all this? What happens when the cup is emptied? When the mirror is wiped clean? When you stop clutching so tightly to the idea of yourself as a separate fragile thing, you find, quite simply, that you are unburdened. There is an incredible, luminous lightness that comes. It is not that your problems vanish. Oh no, life will continue to present its fascinating array of challenges, but the crushing weight of them dissolves. You see, most of our suffering is not the event itself, but our frantic resistance to it, our commentary upon it, our desperate effort to make it not be so. It is like wearing a suit of armor and then complaining that you feel heavy and cannot feel the breeze. The wise man is not someone who has polished his armor to a brilliant shine. He is the one who has simply taken it off. Without that solid defensive eye to protect, what is there to fear? Failure becomes merely feedback. Criticism becomes simply another sound in the symphony. Even death, well, death ceases to be a terrifying full stop at the end of a sentence and begins to look more like the necessary silence between two musical phrases. How can you have a melody without the rests? This is not a cold detachment. It is the most profound engagement. When you are no longer preoccupied with managing your own self-image, you have all the attention in the world available for everything else. You can listen more deeply. You can see more clearly. You can love more openly. Because love, after all, is the opposite of drawing a boundary. Love is the expansion of the sense of self to include another. And when your sense of self is already the whole cosmos, love is simply the way you relate to every part of it. From this empty mind, action arises that is not forced. It is not your will being imposed upon a reluctant universe. It is the universe expressing itself through you, spontaneously and appropriately. It is what the Chinese sages called wu-wei, action that is in effortless accord with the grain of things. Think of a skilled sailor. He does not fight the wind. He does not shout at the waves. He has a mind empty of his own agenda. He simply feels the wind, senses the current, and adjusts his sails. His action is a perfect, graceful response to the environment. He is in a dance with the sea. The wise man is like that. His mind is empty of fixed plans and rigid opinions, so it can respond to what is with clarity, not with what he thinks should be. He is not a rock in the stream, grimly resisting the current. He is the water itself flowing around the rock. And which is ultimately more powerful? The rock may seem solid, but the water, over time, will wear it away to sand. This is the freedom of the empty mind. It is not freedom to get what you want. It is freedom from the desperate need to get it. It is the freedom to participate in the dance of life without worrying about missteps. Because you realize the dance itself is what matters, not your individual performance within it. You are not a victim of a chaotic universe. You are the universe itself, joyful, spontaneous, and free. And when you live from that place, you are no longer living your life. Life is living you. And it is a much better driver than you ever were. You are finally at home. Not in a house, not in a country, but in the entire cosmos. And that, I would suggest, is the only security that is not an illusion. And so, you see, we find ourselves back where we began. But perhaps the view is a little different. The wise man seeks emptiness not because he is lacking, but because he intuits the profound fullness that emptiness contains. He is not running from the world, but into its very heart. He understands that to be truly solid, one must be utterly empty. To be truly full, one must be completely open. There is a famous Zen koan. What is the sound of one hand clapping? It is not a riddle to be solved with logic. It is an invitation to experience the world before we chop it in two. Before we create the duality of the clapper and the clapped, the subject and the object, the solid and the space. The sound of one hand clapping is the sound of this moment. Just as it is, the hum of the computer, the rhythm of your breath, the feeling of the air on your skin. It is the uncarved block singing its own nameless song. It is the mirror reflecting the universe without comment. It is what you are when you are not busy defining what you are. This is not a distant mystical state reserved for monks on mountain tops. It is your original nature before you learn to call yourself I. It is the feeling you get when you are so absorbed in something that you forget the time. You forget your name. In those moments, the cup is empty, and you are drinking directly from the wellspring of existence. So the journey is not one of acquisition. It is not about adding more knowledge, more virtue, more spiritual accomplishments to your collection. It is a journey of subtraction, a gentle, patient letting go of the layers of opinion, the armor of identity, the constant wearing effort to be a separate someone. You are not a lonely star in the blackness of space. You are the blackness of space itself. The immense, silent, and fertile void out of which all stars are born and to which they all return. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. And so perhaps the most important question to ask yourself is not, what should I become, but what is it that I already am? What is this awareness, this consciousness that is reading these words, hearing the sound of my voice? Don't try to answer it with a thought. Just feel it. Don't define the mirror. Just be the clarity. The emptiness is not out there to be found. It is in here to be recognized. It is the very space in which your life is unfolding. It is the silence between your thoughts. It is the awareness that was there before you learned the word I. You are that silence. You are that awareness. You are that emptiness. And because you are that, you are also everything that appears within it. And so the dance continues. But now, perhaps, you can hear the music.